my name is Keaton Ellis, and today I will be going over my DL2 assignment. So for my assignment, I had 3 different articles, all correlating. My first article was Ferguson, everyone knows psychology is not a real science, and then Tyron's response to Ferguson, as well as Ferguson's commentary towards Tyron's. In the first article in Ferguson's Everyone Knows Psychology is Not a Real Science, it covers the possible reasoning behind the science of psychology losing a bit of its following and its relevance as a science. I was actually really surprised to see this, and it really took me by storm when I saw that this was what my article was about. I, being a psychology student, was under the impression that everybody found that psychology was just a science. I just thought it was a known thing. But I found that psychology as a science is not accepted by all scientists and policymakers as a true form of science. The complexities of psychology as a hard science have damaged the credibility of the work that psychologists are doing. This has to do with quite a few facets. One of the largest has to do with the methodological issues, such as the replication crisis. There's a large likelihood that many false positive articles are being published because they're less identifiable. I was actually also shocked to find out that clinicians and researchers were not required to post all of their findings. And a false positive is identified as the wrongful rejection of the null hypothesis, which ruins credibility and is contradictory in nature. Therefore, aversion to pushing null results has come to be an issue of credibility within psychological publications. To put it simply, authors have been publishing null results. Authors believe publishing null results is not a good look. To have inconclusive results is another factor that lowers the credibility of findings that authors have. To continue, there's a present issue of psychologists having the ability to at least slightly shift the experiment to come out with the results they're wanting. Some behaviors that assist psychologists participating in this unofficial malpractice include publishing only the sample amount that came out with their desired results, changing the sample size, exclusion of certain statistical findings, and only reporting the significant results. Again, these really took me by storm that this was able to happen. I was always under the impression that this was not something that was consistent, but to find out it was really shocking. These take place most of the time in good faith. When this malpractice is found time and time again, psychology continues to lose its credibility. The enforcement of ethical procedures tends to be spotty and depends on the individual reviewing and publishing of the article. The author is not required to submit data sets of their findings, which can lead to a lack of transparency. Moving forward, the validity and transparency of psychology being viewed as a science can be shifted positively in a multitude of ways. As Ferguson states, this begins creating a more straightforward process of testing, creating experiments, and being critical of the way in which we receive funds and market ourselves. Data should be collected and presented in an honest, ethical way. Ferguson highly suggests that we stop attempting to produce the results that we believe will look the best. The way psychologists market themselves and their findings is critical to create more transparency within the field. As stated in the article, by becoming involved with specific advocacy groups, psychologists can appear predetermined to create specific results that fit the narrative of the advocacy, thus causing more damage to credibility. Overall, Ferguson highly suggests a change in the culture of psychological findings to adjust the way in which it's viewed as a pseudoscience. And I highly agree with this. Looking more into it and finding out the information that I do agree that the culture needs to change because we don't find results to fit our narrative, we find them to benefit others. Moving forward, Tyron's comment on Ferguson. In the beginning of the article, Tyron points out that he specifically disagrees with the way in which Ferguson said that there should be a change in the theoretical models we currently use in the psychological field. One quote that specifically stuck out to me was, "Associations are not explanations." Following this statement, Tyron remarks that essentially, this is not the way in which psychology as a science functions. There's no cut and dry, and there's no correlation cannot establish causation. Throughout the article, Tyron's main opposition to Ferguson's article is that the theoretical models and mechanics we currently use should not be shut down but explored with a more biological science. The two sciences should be combined more often, thus creating a more solid science for the public to view. I feel that biology is definitely seems to be a more solid science to the public, so I feel that combining these two would be very beneficial. Moving on, Ferguson's reply to Tyron. In an actual turn of events, I was not expecting this. The reply from Ferguson begins with him stating that he completely agrees with much of what Tyron is saying, and that this should be expanded upon. He agrees with the definition Tyron offers about mechanics and how we should use them in the field. The opposition, though, comes into play when Ferguson questions whether the human experience can be fully boiled down by mechanics themselves. Free will that comes with the human experience can create these issues within using mechanics. As Ferguson states, creating a perfect study with zero flaw because of human free will is near impossible, thus creating a lack of transparency that we see time and time again. In conclusion to the reply to Tyron, Ferguson states that while he agrees with Tyron, clinicians and psychologists should do their part to try and understand how free will affects different studies rather than ignoring it altogether and receiving the results they were initially looking for. My concluding thoughts are that these articles were actually really exciting to read. I found them really refreshing and eye-opening to see two respected psychologists presenting their arguments in a respectful and mature way. Both arguments were presented amazingly, using research to back up their responses and argument. In all honesty, I am not sure who I'm in more support of. It seemed like they were pretty on par with each other after the last response, so I really agree with points that most of them make. I fully agree with Tyron when he was discussing the importance of mechanics that we used. On the other hand, I agree with Ferguson on the fact that psychologists need to focus more on understanding the human experience, including free will. I really enjoyed reading these articles. Thank you.